Hey everybody, welcome back to Hometown Friends. On this episode, we will be talking to Chris Berger and Rob Aids. These men have been friends since the crib and grew up together, sharing family life in a neighborhood full of families with kids. In this interview, we hear Chris and Rob tell us stories about being shipwrecked in the San Francisco Bay and using the Claremont Hotel as their neighborhood jungle gym. Together, we recall the thriving Bay Area music scene of the late 90s that brought Chris to hip-hop fame, and some of the more unfortunate times that he struggled with this notoriety and the substance addictions that often infiltrate the lives of performers. The lives of these two friends are intertwined and they're distinct, and the loyalty of friendship is on display. These guys are dynamic, athletic, driven, creative men who are proud to be from the tribe of Berkeley and who grew up taking risks together and learning to navigate the world side by side. The love is strong between these guys due to the many seminal experiences they've enjoyed together, knowing that they have a best friend from the same hometown. Please enjoy my conversation with Rob and Chris.
Fellas, welcome to the Hometown Friends podcast. Appreciate you guys for coming on. Your friendship has always been interesting to me, and I've known you each individually, but you guys have known each other for so long. And you know, when I was in 8th grade and you guys were in 7th grade, I just remember seeing you guys, and you were fast friends, man. And tell us how you guys met. How far you guys go back?
We'll see who remembers what. We go back to the crib, the two of us. I had the geographical lottery win by growing up next door to my best friend and brother of one of 10. So there was nothing but young families in the 70s growing up on the south side of Berkeley. So there's a lot of people. And I got to grow up next door to this guy. And we became fast friends from the crib.
Your moms were friends, right? Your moms were tight, right?
Very tight. Yeah. Best friends. Just like
best friends.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first time you actually met each other? I mean, you say crib, but do you actually remember the time?
Well, this is how I remember. I think Rob was friends with John, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
That's something I heard. What I remember, what I know is we were just like, hey, that's the dope thing about kids and babies. They're perfect. I'm not sure at what point we become imperfect, but they're perfect little aliens. If you watch kids at a little jungle gym or, the playhouse, they don't communicate. They just go, wah, 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 and then they just go off and do their thing. You know what I mean? It's not like what your politics, what you look like, what you about. It's like, wah, 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 let's go do our thing. And so we probably just saw each other like two little, ragamuffins, and we're like, yo, what's up? Let's go get into some shit. And then we got into some shit. But we were real young.
Yeah.
And remember, that neighborhood was nothing but action all the time.
Yeah. Tell them.
Young families. And there was a lot of young families. And so there was people constantly. And we happened to be the youngest all the time. Chris has 9 siblings, all older. I got 2 siblings, both older. And then parents are all older. So we were like us against the world, Not really, but definitely the young
but
ones.
Ready for it.
The young ones.
Yeah.
What are some of your earliest memories of that neighborhood and growing up in that neighborhood?
When you reached out earlier and think about some stories.
Yeah.
I wanted to hold some names back because it is so embarrassing what Rob and I did to a sibling of mine when he demanded through threat of violence that we go get him some orange juice immediately. And we got him some juice. And we used the orange cup. But look,
we got our ass beat.
It was worth it. It was worth it. But so we'll save that story for later, because I was like, how are we going to tell that story without dropping names? And the fact that we got our asses beat, we'll tell you who it was. But it was so much fun. I mean, I'm talking about that neighborhood had the Olivers, the Coons, the Bergers. I mean, all these different families with lots of kids, and they were all older than us. So it was football, baseball, ultimate, roller hockey, downhill roller skating, everything was activity, soccer. That was our biggest thing. Me and Rob were playing soccer on the Foxes. Well, we were on bush rods since like 5 years old. Yeah. That was our life. I remember the smell of Kentucky Fried Chicken. Like, oh, that's all I wanted. Because it was right
my bush rod.
Mom's was like, you got meatloaf at the house. You ain't getting no fried chicken, right? But it was games. And, there was no TV to watch. It was like you get out in the street.
You said, what are some of your youngest, earliest memories? I basically had dinner at the Burger's house 3-4 nights a week on the regular, like almost always. Chris's pop was constantly cooking because he had a huge fucking family and had to cook all the time for everybody. And that was his happy place. Mm-hmm. So, okay, sports fans, what are we making tonight? And he would serve up such good food because he was a badass chef. And we would eat like kings at his table with all his brothers and sisters and whoever else happened to be around, because that's what Bob used to do. He'd feed us.
Let's give Teresa Berger the props. She did it 6 nights a week, and then Pops rolled through on a Sunday.
Celebrity
right, so Moms held it down. Pops came through and got the glory, but it was all about Moms and tuna casserole and meatloaf and all those exciting things. But
I do have an image of you guys all sitting at that huge ass table, and then one of your siblings said they used to put their arms around their plate because there were so many kids. They were like trying to pick off your plate.
Oh, I did for sure. Yeah,
people eat faster than your average bear.
Give me a bite, I'll take it all. That's what my dad would say. Give me a bite, I'll take it all. It's like, here you go, tax man.
Yeah. So growing up go ahead.
If Rob can remember, if I say 0266, what's the last 3 digits?
0266.
440. That's how we got into Claremont.
Oh.
So the parents bought the house in 66, right? John was the first one there, and then Claire came on, and then I popped in.
You've spent a lot of time up at the Claremont Hotel, both of you, for various reasons.
Yeah.
From growing up.
That's our neighborhood.
That is.
I never did the fire shoot. Really? I never did that, wow. But I wanted
Rob, tell us a story about the fire shoot, because that's like a famous Berkeley story that you tell well.
Anything else up in there?
We did a lot of things at the hotel.
We did our Super Bowls there. We go up there with a case of beer, find the door, 357, slide down the roof, pop the door off. Nice. Oh, yeah. Stories come back now, but that's how we did
it.
Good.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a story about the Claremont Hotel having these fire escapes, right?
They were
Rob,
basically from the fourth floor all the way down to the parking lot, and they were at the end of every hallway. And if you were a young kid growing up across the street, you'd run up in there at nighttime and you'd climb all the way up 4 stories and fly down with your friends, or sneak through the hallways and jump in the little access things. And we used that place as our personal jungle gym for sure.
I wish I was a fly on the wall for his interview when you became the manager there. You're like, well, I know this inside and out. Right over there. I never got busted, basically. And here's a plum I threw at a car there.
Well, there was a lot of stories. I've heard a lot of stories of people being up in there, probably from Rob mostly, but finding open.
So we definitely have our own.
Well, we worked together, but you guys grew up in that neighborhood, so you grew up right across the street, and as you said, you did use it as your personal jungle gym, and you brought all your friends along.
Yeah,
to do it too.
151 and 358, or 351 and 158.
502 was the one with the big glass window.
That was the one
that slide down thing, and then and the Tower Suite.
Yeah.
Which one night we were
someone steal
on
the
our
flag?
way. One night we were on our way back home and looked up, and the flag. This is a night of partying in an illegal hotel room, whatever. And here comes the flag, doop, 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 and that ended up in the neighborhood.
Yeah. Chan, when I think about our neighborhood, I have all these good memories about it, and me and Rob being best friends, growing up, doing what we do. And it just is like, I look at the kids or the grandkids and like, what is that value that they place on socializing, right? And even though they do it digitally now, and I think I was watching the grandson play a game the other day, and I'm like, who are you talking to? Oh, I'm talking to my friends I'm playing. Who are they? I don't know. I'm just playing. That's him socializing, right? And like for us, my mom threw the TV. You know, we grew up all Raider fans, right? Because we had the black and white TV. It made sense. We were in the town, all this stuff. But it was like at one point she threw the TV because we were watching TV. So we didn't have a TV for years. And I go to Rob's and we watched 49ers, we watched the Raiders, we watched like different shows. I loved it. That's why I became a cable guy and worked at a video store because I didn't grow up with these vital years. But for us, really getting out and being physical, not coming home until dark. And I just remember playing street ball and it's dark and you're going between cars. And that was the best time of our lives, man. Now it's not so much. You never see kids out there playing. You never see.
Well, for you guys, I've known you for over 40 some odd years, loosely and then closely in probably the last 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
But have always known how athletic and how motivated by doing sports you guys both were. Like I always saw you guys playing soccer. You guys were always on those teams. I ride bikes with Rob now 2 days a week for the last 20 years, and we've done a lot of athletic things together, but just tell me about sports and athletics and how you guys participated together throughout your lives.
So we talked about him having 9 siblings older and us being the young ones. We were challenged as kids to keep up with the bigger kids. And so I think in order to be the shit, which we definitely were, you have to go through some shit. And so we used to get a lot of shit from his older brothers and sisters and my older sisters and whatever. I mean, you know, all in love eventually. But, you know, you like I said, we went through some shit with these people challenging us physically. So, yeah, that was always, I think, a gift because you end up being, you know, able to participate at a high level, and it's wonderful. And so that's always been a part of our lives, I think. I mean, participating in sports for sure. And
having older kids, older brothers challenging you, pushing you, teasing you.
Brought us to that place, yeah.
Yeah, and you had each other.
Yeah, for sure.
Sort of you against the world, kind of you against the Burger boys.
You know, do you remember this memory right here? Remember sitting up in the line, and then they got the 2 captains, and they're picking people, and then the last one they pick because I was, despite what you may think, I was like 120 pounds, really skinny, and I had these giant feet. And they're like, no one will think the ball's going to him, and I'll be out there, you know, don't hit me. But it's like my memories of Rob. Like, remember, I had 4 brothers and 5 sisters. Rob had these sisters. He had 2, and he's like. So Rob's in this house right across the path with 3 women, like the 2 sisters and mom. I'm in this house with all these people because it wasn't just the burgers. It was the party house. You know, I don't mean like that, but it was like the place to be. Johnny Brook, everybody, the Olivers, the Coons. And Rob was Sir Scrap-a-Lot on the soccer field. And I'm just saying that because it's like, you had such fervor. You wanted to fight anyone. You made Buddy proud on the soccer. Buddy liked to fire Dave Oltan, you know, made those dudes proud. And I was Mr. Peace and Love. I was like, why are we fighting? Rob was ready to go. De La Salle don't matter. You know, we wanted to slap him up. But I just remember those memories of Rob is like always wanting to fight and be scrappy.
Well, that's a little yin and yang for you guys, isn't it? You being the peace and love guy and Rob being the aggressive, take no shit, fly off the handle a few times, but let you know.
But then we flip it. Secretly, I'm really evil. Rob's a lover.
Well, definitely, Rob is definitely a lover. In fact, I've known Rob now closely for these last 25 years, and Rob introduced me. I mean, in a lot of ways, I give Rob credit for smoothing the way for me and Chrissy. I mean, when I met my wife, she remembers me from a Woolsey House party, but I didn't remember her then. But then when I went to the Berkeley Jazz Festival, I was hanging out with Rob. We were in our 30s. And I was like, who is that? And he's like, that's Chrissy. You don't know Chrissy? And I was like, I had never really seen her before, but she had just come back. She had this short haircut. I was like, I was on fire. And Rob smoothed it out. He's like, are you sure, Chrissy? Are you sure, Chandler? And I was like, yeah. And he like went to Chrissy. He was like, are you going to take care of my boy? And she was like, yeah. So one of the things that I love talking to you guys about, but like, you know, I gave you guys a survey and you both answered it. And one of the questions that I asked is like, how do you define what a friendship is? What's your definition? And Rob said, folks you can talk shit to, and it's all love.
Yeah.
And Chris said availability, honesty, open, support. So do you guys remember saying those things?
Yes.
And what
In response to the survey?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you mean by that, Rob? Because that's obviously super.
Chime in on what he said, because availability, this dude has always been available to me on all of my harebrained ideas. One day we decided we were going to go sailing in the bay in a 12-foot sunfish boat, which is not built for the bay per se. And we went out, drove that thing in the back of a trailer, hooked it up to the car, sort of rowed to the bay. And what we decided was we were going to venture out underneath the Bay Bridge.
Oh.
If you're familiar with the geography of the land, it is a fair distance out there. And in a tiny little sailboat, we capsized 6-7 times. We had, 6 tall cans of beers with us, and they're floating away, and we're grabbing our beers. And the 5th or 6th time that we capsized, because we were avid sailors, so we knew about standing on the rudder and flipping that bag back over. But I mean, we were in huge waves, capsized, soaking wet, huge waves, capsized. The 5th time, we're bringing the thing back over, and the sail folded in half.
Oh my God.
And we're out in the bay, like really worried that we might not be able to get back. And for the next 3.5, 4 hours, we go creeping back towards the bay with me standing on the front of the boat. Chris is steering. I'm holding the folded, bent, broken sail so that we can catch a little bit of wind. And come 6:30 at night, we come creeping by his lordships, and fools are sitting down having dinner. And there's these 2 idiots come limping back into the dock. And it was, we were lucky to be alive for sure.
Happy to hear it.
Yeah.
How old were you then?
Just at Yerba Buena, we're underneath the bridge. We're yelling at traffic because it's traffic time. We're smoking some, and we got that beer. And we're laughing. We're just, look at you in traffic, fool.
We're on the bay.
So we keep on capsizing, right? Flipping the boat. And when I'm scared, I'm quick. I love swimming, but I'm cool with dark ocean, seawater, where I don't know. So I'm on the Jagger board quick. Rob's treading water. I'm like flipping it, flip it over. And the last time, that's when the mast broke in half. So we're right next to Yerba Buena. And then we had to use, because if you know those little boats, you have a tiller connected to the rudder. And so when you're in like, what do you call it, irons, when you're not doing anything, you just go back and forth and it just lets you snake along. And so we snaked with Rob holding the mast together. And that was really idiotic. It wasn't too intelligent, but it makes a hell of a story. We had a great time.
How old were you at that time?
We were happy to be back home.
We were in our
I bet.
Yeah.
How old?
Probably 16, 17.
No, because I didn't party. It was after.
Right.
It had to be because we were drinking and smoking. It had to be after I was
18, 19.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, speaking of partying, that's one of the things that hometown friends tend to do a lot of, because they're taking risks, and a lot of people start partying with their hometown friends, right? And I'm curious about that story for you guys. When did you start partying together? Did you do it separately?
You're definitely for me.
Yeah, I think I was 11 or 10. 11? It was a New Year's Eve, 1980 or something like that. And it was at the Netics.
Oh.
That's when
that was the first time we were actually drinking together.
But then
that was New Year's Eve. That was
too.
We drank tall cans of Schlitz, malt liquor, and thought we were, we thought we were intelligent at the time. But we ended up coming over to my next door neighbors, the Netics, were having the New Year's Eve party, and all the parents were downstairs in the living room. And this is my distinct memory. We came to the door, and Benjamin and Alexander, whatever, met us at the door, and they're like, "You guys aren't drunk." And we were like, because we were at home, we were big into juggling at the time, and we knew we were inebriated because we couldn't juggle, and we thought that was funny. We got over there, and they're like, you guys are lying, you're not drunk, like you can't possibly be that hooched. And then Chris went upstairs and projectile vomited on the entire upstairs fucking bedroom, and they're like, oh shit, you guys are that drunk. It was a scene.
I wish I would have realized it at that point. Like, this
Right.
is not. It took me 30 more years, 29 more years to realize if I was 10. Yeah, I think I was 10 or 11 or something like that. That was. But see, remember our neighborhood, big 420, big growth, big weed.
Absolutely.
So at your wife's house, we would sit there with Glad bags full of weed that all the growers had gone through 10 times. And so we're getting these tiny little pistols, little tiny little thing, and watching the US Festival or Clockwork Orange, just like for hours after school. Just like, and we get maybe like a quarter right out of a giant bag, but we're kids. We ain't got a job. That's our job. And then we sell our little things to get our money and then smoke our other thing. But that was, herb was big to us. Drinking was big because, so our thing is there was parties and stuff, but we put our $2 in. We call it, I think, corn beer, Schaefer. They look like a little corn stalk, right? And we do $2 each, get a 12-pack or a case, and we walk up to the hollow tree about a mile past it to the rock every weekend with a little box with Pink Floyd, The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon, and sit back on the rock. And imagine that view. You know, you can't buy that view. It's just that view of the Bay Area, just drinking and smoking. That was perfect. That was good time.
Yeah.
That was perfect.
So many people, like, partying always starts off amazing, right? When you're a young person and you're partying with friends, God, there's nothing more exciting than that. And most people have that experience, especially with their hometown friends.
Yeah.
Of starting. And of course, Chris, you could tell us it always goes too far, right? Everybody, I mean, you know,
I don't know if I traded. Yeah. I don't know if I traded. It was really death defying many, many, many situations. You're right. And why is that, right? And I'm able to look at the grandson now and go, why is that? Well, it's warm, it's fuzzy, inhibitions are lowered. You could socialize, you're not as insecure. You're part of something, right? That's a shortcut because you can get all that without doing that. But sometimes we like the shortcuts, right?
Right.
Other people have a horrible experience. We happen to have very good experiences because when you're keeping it just to your 6-pack and some herbs, there's not much that go wrong unless you get behind a vehicle, the wheel of a car or something. What ends up happening, I'm not saying those are gateways. Alcohol definitely was a gateway for me, but not weed. I love weed. Just don't smoke. And those other things start to come into play. And those are the no bueno. Those are
right.
Bad.
Well, I can tell you, I have never had a better time in my life than partying with Rob. I have so many amazing stories about partying with Rob, and it wasn't early. It wasn't like teenager. It was in our 20s and 30s. And Rob taught me how to roll a joint. Like, to this day, Rob's technique is the shit. Like, if you want to roll a fat bat, you use Rob's technique, at least in my world. What do you think, Rob?
I think, Jan, I'll never forget what you told me about when I was hanging out at the house that you moved into down the street on Woolsey. Those were my buddies, and Jan moved in, and I was there on the couch, and you looked over at me and you go, "So, how often are you here, man?" And I go, "What? Like this is my shit. Like, what do you mean?" And you're like, "I just want to know, who I'll be hanging with." And I was like, "Oh, you're going to be seeing me. Yes. We will be hanging out together if you're living here for sure. This is our crib." That was the place to be for a long time. That was Woolsey crib. And the funny thing is, it started 3 blocks below the Hilligus Wrecking Crew. Oh, E-Rock. Right below, 3 blocks below. Right. Eric Rogers, Rob Age, the crew. Hilligus. That was the Hilligus Wrecking Crew. Oh. That I got a star to prove it. Was it this side?
Wow.
This? I got busted with the gold nugget. Oh. Yeah.
What happened?
It was a good night. Well, I rapped with this dude. The other MC in my group had some beef with this dude. I came to the party with that dude that my other MC had beef with. He just decided to take it out on me, but I thought we were joking, so I went up against him, and he was much larger. He was a Marine, and he had gold nuggets, and I was trying to show off in front of my buddies like I could stand up to this big dude, and he tacked me before I could even. So I slid into the next room, and then Hofla was like, I was like, nah, we're just messing around. I said, "You're not messing around. Your eye." So, yeah, it was all bad. But, I was warm and fuzzy from the alcohol, so I didn't even trip. It was,
Right.
But
Right.
it was just one of those things. We had such good times at Eric's spot. That was the precursor to Woolsey. That
Right.
was that was.
Well, it's true. When I moved into the Woolsey house, I did ask Rob if he was going to be around, and he did let me know that he was going to be there a lot. And I did sort of, I came to the realization, well, I guess Rob and I are going to be friends then. And we were fast friends. In fact, we are still really good friends. And then when we got to work together at the Claremont Hotel, I was the bartender and you were the manager. Man, we were running that place. That place was, I was giving away a lot of drinks and you were allowing me to, essentially.
When I said that we had to go through some shit to be the shit, we were the shit, Chandler. That was definitely, that was part of being the shit. That was good times. That was good.
Yeah.
That was good.
But see, Chan, what you're talking about is after high school.
Yeah.
We knew each other in high school. We
did. Absolutely. But we didn't kick it that much.
Okay.
What I knew about you in high school is that you were a runner and that you didn't party. And I remember seeing you at parties. And I remember knowing that you ran to every party and that you were about to get up the next day and go do a race or compete in some athletic ability, and that you didn't have your headband on. And I remember you with your headband from 7th grade. But and then I remember you, in the music scene with Sean Lou, and I have vague memories, and we were loosely connected, the three of us, but not really connected until, truthfully, I think after I came back from college, going to graduate school at the Woolsey House. That's when we really got connected. But here's the thing about Hometown Friends, right? The fact that I knew who you guys were made it so simple for me to just ask Rob, are you going to be in my world? And Rob's like, yes. And I'm like, cool. Then we're cool because I know who you are. I don't know you very well, but the familiarity brings us right to a place that we were immediately going from way more than just meeting each other, right? You drop into a very connected place right away. And then, of course, we have all these other friends, these other hometown friends that support, that vet the kind of relationship that you already have. So it's unique to be able to have these people that you're so familiar with, even if we didn't kick it, we didn't have a lot of, we were loosely connected. The fact you drop in pretty quickly. What do you guys think?
I think Berkeley's a small town, despite the 30,000 immigrants that come and go with each school year. But in general, it's a very small town and very tight knit. And there's one high school that everybody ends up at. And so we grew up on the South Side, and, the North Side kids were unfamiliar to us until we all ended up at one spot, Berkeley High, boom. And so the town sort of feeds that. Yes, the familiarity. Yes, you can go out, and yes, we have a connection because we're from the town. And B-Town was killer growing up, and just a great spot of a great mix of people and wonderful music and dancing. And I'd say, yeah.
Tell me about that, you guys, because one of the questions that I did ask on the survey is, what do you think about your hometown? Do you think your hometown actually has something to do with the type of friendships you have? And I'm curious about that.
I was one thing, as Rob, you're saying those things. I have so many memories of the beauty of Tilden Park and going up to the hills and just saying, we have this right here, not at our disposal, but to appreciate and be. Think about a kid just going up under a tree in a park, just being able to think, and a bird flies up or a squirrel. You're just like, oh, I appreciate that. Get you out of your funk. Now imagine going up to Tilden or hitting the fire trail and having the ability to do that every day. Or I feel like going out to the ocean. You go down to the marina and just watch the waves. So it's like church in that aspect where you could appreciate. And then, of course, we were Boy Scouts. I was just thinking about beach camp, when we do church on Sundays. It was non-denominational, but you just get out there and someone would say something. We were just watching the waves. To me, church camp and Boy Scouts were some of the greatest parts of my childhood. Not because I wasn't partying, because I didn't need to. I got to that place that I was looking to get to. but the camaraderie, and Rob took the Boy Scouts like that. I didn't want to leave the girlfriend, so I quit. Like ninth grade, I'm not trying to leave for a month in the summer. It wasn't happening. But being with the Boy Scouts at that age, 12, 13, 14, and you're looking at the big dudes are showing how you tie ropes and lashings, and everyone had a job, right? We had commissary, we had getting the wood, chopping the wood, cooking, kitchen patrol, right? You work as a unit. So for me, B-Town was always like, and actually, let me say this, as we've gotten older and we have that association with other people in B-Town, they kind of know what you're about. Oakland's similar in that aspect, Oakland, Berkeley, just like that. I can't say much about Albany or El Cerrito, but, I just think that you go, oh, you're from B-Town, and you have those things, about you and about your family and what kind of people, what kind of tribe you come from.
I agree.
Yeah, it is a tribe. There is other people have said that there's a sense of being from somewhere, right? From being like when I went out to Maryland, I always said I'm from Berkeley. I never said I was from San Francisco, but a lot of people say the same thing. They tell me I always said I'm from Berkeley. So is there a sense of like pride of being from the tribe of Berkeley?
Well, so Berkeley has such a thick and rich history of a very dynamic place for a plethora of reasons, but just to not that many people, like I said, it's a small town, so not that many people are truly from Berkeley. So yeah, I feel like I take huge pride in being able to say, oh yeah, they go, oh, I'll wear a Cal hat or whatever. You went to Cal? No, I was born and raised. This is my town. So
right.
It for me, it's a hugely prideful thing to be from here, and then people get kind of like odd just because of the rich history of the and the gorgeous Mediterranean climate don't hurt. So
Yeah.
Yes. But there's other things about why people love Berkeley or are proud to be from Berkeley. I'll just say I loved the idea that we had a multicultural, or at least the idea of a multicultural society. Not that it always worked out that way, but our schools were integrated on purpose, right? They bussed us around so that we all went to different schools that made it a diverse spot. So you grew up with people who were different ethnic classes and races and cultures, and that was on purpose. So that was like that's a prideful thing. I think a lot of people have a lot of pride in that. What do you guys think?
Well, we went to the first high school in the nation that had ethnic studies, right? Black
there you
studies.
go.
Berkeley High, and then we both went to SF State, which was the first college, right?
I followed my best friend at SF State after a year and not going to state, but when he was there, it was easy for me to go there because and we went there I went there for years. But that's a whole nother story.
None of that matters. But I'll tell you this: I went to elementary school where like first through sixth at St. Augustine's in Oakland, right? And my third grade teacher, Miss Walton, used to sing songs. They were black, brown, white, red, and yellow. Oh, Lord, what difference does it make? Fast forward 40 years, right? I'm at this Jerry Garcia day with Sunshine, hooks me up to go see her watch the, Star Spangled Banner, sing the Star Spangled Banner at the Giants game. I come up to Bill Walton, who was my third grade teacher's cousin, right? And I'm like, hey, Bill, man, your cousin, she made such an impact on me as a third grader. We'd sleep at her house, we'd make bread, we'd watch The Wizard of Oz, and she'd sing songs on the acoustic guitar, like these beautiful songs. And I sang the lyrics to him. And Bill's like, oh, that's really nice, right? And then later on that day, he invites me up to his box to go watch the game with him. Damn. And I'm like, man, I'm chilling with Bill. This is crazy, right? And it all goes back to that time of having, take it a couple years later, let's say 5 years later. Our teacher is taking us to go see the Prince movie at the Coronet Theater in 1984, was that? A couple years later, maybe a year later, we're going to Grateful Dead shows with this teacher. We're going to the US Festival. We're going camping. Try doing that in another, try to think of that happening in another spot. And that shaped who we are, right? To this day, that trust of having someone look after you, but not with ulterior motives or anything like that, right?
You mean an adult that actually paid you attention, that was cool, that was cool with you guys? Yeah.
Man, we was totally into that hippie thing. We were like, oh, this is great. Yeah, free, right? We'd go to, what was that, Kleberger, right? Because we couldn't buy the ticket for the Greek theater, so the dad would set up speakers at the AstroTurf.
Go dance at the AstroTurf. Oh yeah,
chill,
yeah.
right? And so there's, you don't see that in Walnut Creek. You
No.
don't see that in San Jose. It just ain't happening, right?
Well-
Berkeley fostered that.
Yeah. I mean, the you always knew when the Dead were in town, right?
Oh,
Because
always.
the buses were all over the place. The hippies were all over the place.
A couple years
Even more.
before all that happened,
Patchouli was in the air.
Chris and I went as 7th graders, I'm pretty sure, to the Who.
Oh,
And we came back to school and we had paraphernalia from the concert, meaning like a bandana on our knee that said the Who and a Who concert t-shirt. And we were like rock stars for about 3 months because people were so tripped out that you guys got to go see the Who. Like that didn't happen. These kids are young, 13, 14 years old.
yeah, that day. Remember I was telling you about the big bags of weed? I think we each went to that show with 30 joints. I don't know why the amount mattered. I'd say it was at least over 20 because the medics tried to take me away before the opener. No, it was like T-Bone Burnett, The Clash, and then the Who. I think I made it through T-Bone Burnett, and they're like, "You're coming with us," and I was like, then back in my seat like this, so like, "You're coming with us."
Wow.
11-year-old. I'm like, no, I'm not going to miss this show, right?
Now,
Like that.
and you guys went by yourselves.
Oh yeah.
You didn't have your parents with you.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the 70s for it,
It was a
right?
different time. A different time,
Yeah.
for sure.
But you had each other, and you had older siblings, so you likely went with them.
No.
Yeah,
Not over.
No?
No. They're just ourselves.
just you guys.
Yeah. We had this protected thing. We knew things were going to work out for us. And it's funny because now that I got this little grandson dude who's 15, sir, scam too much. I mean, I'm just like, I'm watching him like, did you take that from me? No. Which is the default. And then I'm like, look, I'm really hurt that you took that from me. I think like, okay, I'll give it back, right? And I am hurt. I'm like, man, I champion you. You take something? What are you doing? You can't say what's wrong with you. But
No.
he's doing some of those same things. He's displaying some of those same behaviors that we were doing. It was like, when I'm with my friends, it was like, what are we doing? We got to be, what are we doing? Not what are you doing? What are we doing? I would just show up, open the door. Hi, Lucy. I'm his age. Do the best Eddie Haskell. Probably this dude. Go up. What are we doing? What are we getting into? Right.
Right.
We go wherever. Remember you jump the bus pass?
Oh, dude.
So we go to one block. One dude get on the bus, jump the bus pass.
So the way
Run it to the other dude.
the way that worked out with those is that we basically had a budget. So we would get an allowance. You guys have an allowance, but you're supposed to buy your bus pass. And we figured, well, we only need one bus pass between the two of us, and the rest of it we'll use for what we want to use it for. And we would get on the bus and literally throw it out the window, and fools would sprint to the next block as the bus came around and get on. Yeah, we had one bus pass the majority of high school.
That's a real friend who would share your bus pass with you, and then you split the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We needed our money for other important things. Not
Very important
transportation.
things. That's correct.
Mental and spiritual transportation. That's what we needed it for.
God, I love it. Well, now, when did you stop drinking, Chris? When you had a couple? Yeah, you had a couple seasons of stopping, didn't you?
Yeah, I had it was right before sophomore year. I'll never forget. Speaking of Woolsey House, I mean, the reason it all happened is because we played soccer with Mark DeJandre, right?
Right.
Lorenzo was the little bro. It was all about Mark, Matt, Chris, and Rob. That was the crew, right?
Right.
And it was Chris and Rob and Mark and Matt, and we had a little Chris and Matt and Mark and Rob. It was interchange cats. But Mark was like, man, I'm losing my thought. Oh yeah, Mark. One time when we went up, I guess we went to the hills, and I decided I was too toe up to make it to the hill. We'd go there all the time. So I wake up the next morning, I'm like, I'm feeling good. I'm in my bed. I'm like, I made it. Then I talked to Mark. He's like, dude, I found you in the gutter outside. You didn't even make it to your bed. He said, I picked your ass up there out the gutter. Listen to you. Yeah. So he took me out the gutter, brought me up the burger steps, which is a lot of steps, and then the other steps, put me in bed and let me be. So I thank you, Mark, for doing that. But, that was the end of, freshman year. I was high the whole time. I thought I was Jimi Hendrix, and I just started thinking about what are you going to do? How are you going to get in? What's the next step after high school? And if you're this dude, you ain't going to make it. So, and there were some things where Santa Rita was a household name. in my households because when my brothers and stuff, and it just didn't seem that was the track I was going on. So I was like,
Okay.
well, I'm pretty good at this running thing. And it was Willie White, national renowned track coach at Berkeley High.
Also
Right.
a math teacher.
Right. No, that's Mr. Ward.
Oh, okay.
But really, as a stoner, I took soccer class to get the easy A. And he saw my skinny ass running up and down the field. He's like, Berger, you coming out for track? I'm like, sure, coach. All right. And so I go out to track or cross country because I was the fall the next year. And I go from a 5:21 mile to a 4:35 by the end of the year. And by that time, that little experiment of not drinking or smoking, or because we were doing not just drinking or smoking, we did everything.
Still on the board of glory at the track today, to this day.
Yeah.
Fastest mile, 1,600, it was 1,600 a mile.
1,600.
Oh, 1,600.
Yeah.
Fastest
That's amazing.
in Berkeley High history.
But what
Still
that
on the
does
board.
for me is if
On
you
the
try
board.
hard for something and apply yourself, you can get somewhere. And that's so I stopped before sophomore year.
I got a CV tip.
Go ahead.
Chris used to go to the parties, all the parties, regardless of his activities the next day or whatever, but he would have a beer, whether, I don't know, he drank it or not, but then he would continually refill that beer bottle with water and pound water all night long just to be social and be in that scene. And I learned that from him. And to this day, like, there's times when I don't want to drink as much as I do because I drink really fast and still drink, but drinking water, let that be a lesson to you.
Yes.
From a beer can.
Water is-
No, that's a great technique for everybody, for a lot of people. In fact, many of my friends have told me that in this day in life, when they don't want to actually drink so much, right? They pour that beer out, fill it with water, and then they're social. Nobody asks them. No one gives them the social pressure. Like,
And you're
right.
fully hydrating if you drink like I drink, which is just a lot. It doesn't matter what it is. It's just, it's a fast sort of activity. So drinking
Yeah.
water is great. And I learned that
Yeah.
one from him.
You get
That's a
a
good, that's
Right,
That's
that
a
oral
great
taste,
tip.
you get a toothpick, you're good. Put some
Nice.
water. I would do it out of shaper cans. I'd be like, top back. I never stop being a drinker. I just drink different stuff. Yeah.
But Rob, you also had a high school inspiration into athletics, if I'm not mistaken, where I don't know if you stopped partying, but you got on a track, right? You went to the swimming.
So now I was with him the ninth grade when he was Jimmy, and I was basically on that same path that we didn't go to a lot of class. We did a lot of partying at Provo Park next door, and cut class and didn't do well. And come what was supposed to be my sophomore year of high school, we used to have self-scheduling at the high school, and you'd get these little cards and get to pick all your classes, which was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
But especially if you knew people, and we always knew people, so you could get the good classes and the good schedule. And anyway, at the end of my freshman year, I did not have enough credits to be a sophomore. So I had this eye-opening experience of having to schedule with the freshmen of the next class for that first semester. I quickly made it up, but I that year joined the water polo team, the swim team, and the soccer team sophomore year, and was like, I can't be doing that every day because that shit was bad for me.
Hold up. You didn't play freshman soccer?
No.
We were high. That's probably why we didn't.
That's correct.
Ah, okay. Well, we played club soccer.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. I was the sophomore year. That actually was
That's when I was a manager, right?
That was a big life-changing experience because it was eye-opening. It was like, this is not what I want to be doing. I want to be doing this, and the sports helped make that happen.
You both learned how to dial it back way back then when a lot of people weren't dialing it back.
And let me say this. I'm just trying to get in the mind of the grandson who represents who I was at that age.
Right.
What's the end goal? Like I said, I love church camp and I love Boy Scouts camp, right? Because what are we after? We're after feeling satisfaction, feeling whole, feeling a part of something, right? So if those things are whatever you want to call them, shortcuts, drinking and smoking to get there, how are we going to get there? And if getting there is being social, status, popularity or something, we're going to choose that route, right? You don't think about those things when you're high because you're high. You just want that feeling of like, I got this angst, I got this depression, I got these traumas, whatever it is. But I think that in doing that, Berkeley High team, soccer team, rock stars. And it was hard for me not to play because I was riding the bench behind Rob Young.
Right?
Right.
So that's why I was like, it was easy to go to track and field and cry. I was like, shoot, I could do this. This is great. Like you're in the paper, all those. But what I'm saying is you got this feeling of accomplishment of you're working hard. And soccer was always my first love because you're working as a unit. It's this team, the mist in the morning, the fresh cut orange slices, the nets when they go up, they're tight. You're just like, you're looking at your boys and, it's like we had the crew, Buddy and Ultic, LaRue, right? Charles, shit, Marcos was dope, Rob was just scratched too much,
How many
Man,
teams did you guys play on together, do you think?
Leagues?
Teams we
How many
played
teams?
from the time we were little till
Yeah. 15 years maybe?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Wow, through high school.
Yeah, from age 5, from the Foxes, then we did Bushrod, Foxes, Mustangs, then Rockridge. I forget what the Rockridge, that was Jake Hedges' dad. Gino Kedja. And then we did we do any clubs besides Bushrod? And Rockridge, Bushrod.
Rockridge.
Yeah, Bushrod and Rockridge. And then he played for Pacific Supply Baseball. I would go to the games and watch them, but I wasn't into having fast things come at my head. I got a lot of respect for I love baseball, one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I would just sit there in the dugout hanging out with them. But they're Pacific Supply, right?
That was our little league team, yeah, for sure.
Do you guys remember, you guys were close all the way through high school, is that correct? Would you call yourself, that was, best friends through high school? Did you continue to
this day.
Yeah.
To this day, this is like when somebody asks who's your best friend, and we may not see each other as much as we used to, and we're not hanging out as tight as we are. But if you ever ask me who's your best friend, it's this guy right here, and it always was. My whole life has been my best friend by my side, available.
He even shot me in the stomach.
Oh, dang. Dang.
That's back to that weed dealer shit I was talking about.
Yes.
But here's one of the things, like one of those key points that he says, is that there was time because I was doing the running thing. I was hanging out with Alex Da Silva from El Cerrito, and he got me into like dancing and like, doing the Smurf and all that. So he was part of the erotic dancers. He would say Alex Day Silva, so it sounded like he was related to Morris Day.
Yeah.
Right? And that was to the point where you were hanging tight with Eric Rogers because I was on the running thing and you were doing your thing and partying and stuff, but we were always best friends. So we weren't spending as much time at night because I was trying to get up and go ready to the next, race or, do my thing. And then they were doing their thing at the Hilligan's house. But see, that was only like a 3-year thing. So sophomore, junior, and first semester senior, I went back to partying second semester senior year. And that lasted until about 14 and a half years ago.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so after high school, what did you guys do? It sounds like you both went to San Francisco State.
No, Slow Town. Remember Sal's? Like slapping that dude in the back. He went to Slow Town, and I think I went to State. I ran at State, and he was doing horticulture.
Ornamental horticulture at Cal Poly.
Nice.
What is that? What does that mean?
That means that you're
The Christmas trees?
ornament.
You make it look good. So you like bend so the tops come up? Is it a weed thing? Or?
It was in my mind, I'm sure.
I mean, what's the ornamental part?
I only lasted a year.
Oh, yeah, GE. But it sounded good, right?
Now you followed another friend there, didn't you, Rob?
Marcos
To Slow?
Oh yeah.
I thought he was Fullerton.
No, he went to Cal Poly, but he was only there for a couple months. He dropped out, and I stayed.
I went to visit him. It was hilarious. Yeah. Yeah.
So friends were pretty important to you, obviously. You wanted to be close to your friends, whether it was CB going to San Francisco State or Marcos at Slow. Always pretty important to you, Rob.
Definitely.
Yeah. What do you think?
At that point, when you're like, whether you're social and know a lot of people, or if you just had your little pack of crew that you were confident and
Yeah.
You go off to another place, you're dropped in the middle of, anywhere from 10 to 30,000 people. And you're like, I got to start this whole, you spent your whole lifetime making relationships. And, for us, it was like, you have these older burgers and older people in the neighborhood and people knew you. People knew who you were just because you had family is like a tentacle. Like, oh, this person knows this person, that little brother and this older sister, right? And then you go to this new place
him in Slowtown and me at State, and I lived in the dorms for the first year. I'm like, yes, I had a team, so that was my social thing. But you're kind of like, I got to start this over again and get to know people, get to meet people. It's insecurities abound.
But some people crave that, right? Some people crave getting out of their hometowns and onto the next version, of themselves.
Be who you want to be.
Yeah, and oftentimes because you're not super stoked or happy with your situation at home. Whereas I've always been proud to be from Berkeley. I've always been happy to know a bunch of people in one spot. And no matter where people go, they always come back, and they're always back in the town. And then you see them, and it's like there's a connection there because you're all from the town, and the town is cool and is cool.
Yeah. I agree. Now, I'm curious, we talked about what makes Berkeley special, and certainly I'm curious to know what other things you think makes it special. But one of the things I do think is interesting, especially about your friendship and other people too, is that you represent different ethnicities, and you moved through the world together as a unit throughout Berkeley and throughout the world, or throughout, the United States or wherever. Did you feel like that was, do you have a sense of identity about that? Rob, you being white, Chris, you being, what do you call it? Blaxican. I like that. Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. I think like what I knew about Rob is that your dad, Egyptian, right?
Correct.
Mom's from England, right? Me, I didn't know too much. What I knew about who I was and my makeup, my background was on a yellow piece of legal pad that someone gave my parents. And if you know much about adoption, it's like they just put whatever. So I'm hanging my hat on that my whole life. I'm son of a Semper Fi. My dad was a helicopter pilot, Marine, and this and that. I'm hella proud. And, my mom was a telephone operator in Oakland. And, he was from Oakland, and he was a computer guy after, and I had all these stories. Some of it was true, but definitely, when the draft came to his door, he went out the back door. So he was not what I thought he was. Apparently, he was a genius. He created these circuit boards that they used at Stanford back in the 70s, right? He went to Tech, Oakland Tech, and my mom went to McClymonds, right? Being raised in the Berger family took on a whole new identity, right? And so as kids, no matter who you are, you're just trying to fit in. And for me, growing up in this neighborhood, yes, we had the Santana records, we had the Stevie Wonder, we also had the Rolling Stones, we had the Who, we had all this stuff. And so who do I identify with? Hendrix, right? So I could still be in that rock thing, but he spoke to me, right? Years back, it was easy to do Halloween because he was, what's that dude's name? I was Tubbs and you're Crocker, right? Barring mom's blazers with the little David Byrne little thing, right? But it fit with Berkeley.
I was just going to say that I think that's a testament to Berkeley that we were able to thrive and not trip on. I don't think this would exist even on that side of the hills. It's it'd be a totally different thing. And in Berkeley, it's a very accepting place and a melting pot for all kinds of shit. And it's good. And it makes it so you can be whoever you want to be.
We're at the rallies together,
Yeah, it's super common and often common in Berkeley. But I'm curious, did you go through any, racial epithets that you experienced together, or, did you share that kind of thing with each other? Did you talk about race? Because that's something that I do think Berkeley folk have an opportunity to do that a lot of people don't do, which is talk about race.
Mm-hmm.
We're encouraged to talk about it.
Hard conversations to have about what you go through your day are not on the top of, your lips when you're talking to your friend. It's all about getting through the day. Let's go have some fun.
Yeah.
Some things that I remember being in that neighborhood, someone yelling the N-word at me going what's wrong with you? Right? Because I kind of know your car. I know you're from around here. What's wrong? But I shouldn't be here is in your head. Right. And frustrations with that.
Even in your own neighborhood? In your own neighborhood? In your own neighborhood?
Yeah, that's right next to the station. You get those microaggressions. I would get those microaggressions all the time. Growing up, I had such a hunger just to fit in. And it really wasn't until I'm just like a lot of people reading autobiography of X, which I was just like, my mind just exploded like, oh my God, this is who I am, right? I could be who I am, who I really am without trying to, integration versus assimilation versus being independent and then saying, I got love for you, right? Owning who you are. I also remember being on the bus, going to the spot, and that bus didn't have too many white dudes on it. It was funny because I got to see it the other way around.
Sure.
And I kind of loved it, but it was messed up for my boy, not Rob. But we were on the bus, and it was all brothers on the bus. So I get in. I feel comfortable. I'm with my homie, but that's my homie. And this is Matt. And so I sit down. I got my legs like this. The dude come up to me and goes, shut your legs. Your balls ain't that big, right? So I'm like, all right, dude. All right. I'm going to comply. And then my boy gets slapped. But to me, I was like, I don't know what kind of scary looks he was giving the other dudes, but we got off at the next stop, and I was like, to be 10% of the country, to be 10% of any place you go, there'll always be the sore thumb, to always be the minority. You know what it's like to tone down your thing and, I'm not going to be too much this and that, right? And then having that flip around and your homie that's always seen you in those situations, all of a sudden it's flipped. And it's nothing but slap. We all got slapped. It's nothing. But it was like, it woke his ass up. It was like that. But I think also with Berkeley, it was really it wasn't so much a focus on independent with your ethnicity or nationality or your race. It was really about this melting pot. How can we all come together? Right. But I will say it was from a girlfriend, a Jewish girlfriend, who introduced me to the Panthers. Right. So you don't know where it's going to come from.
True.
And I always say what Stokely Carmichael, Kwame Ture said when we were at State, he's like, the one thing you had nothing to do with, this. So he was just checking people trying to be over proud on things. I'm proud of who I am, but it really didn't have nothing to do with it. It was my two parents getting it on, right? So where do I take it from here? How do I enlighten other minds, right? How do I show love for other people? And especially being in my other thing, which I'm an AA dude, I have to help the next alcoholic. I don't care what they. When I first joined AA, I was like, my sponsor's got to be Black. They got to be a musician. They got to understand me. And they're like, you need to sit down, take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth, is what they told me. And then I got this Italian guitar player as my sponsor. And it was the best dude in the world. So it's sometimes what you really want and think you need isn't that.
I do think that having the opportunity to have a diverse group of friends it always gave me a sense of pride, if that's the word, or I always felt privileged to have a group of friends. It got less and less diverse as I got older and older. It started out really diverse and then just seemed to get less and less diverse once we got into high school, because we just got more stratified. And the people that I knew from, when I was a little kid were, we might give each other a little nod, but we weren't really hanging out, right? So my two best friends when I was growing up were Che and Manuel. And Manuel's on the slopes, and Che was, with the black derby and the white shirt, and they had a uniform, and I had my little, collar shirt on, preppy, and we were just like, on the steps, and we would look at each other in the high school and just like, man, we came from the same place, and we are just claiming totally different, friend groups. But we always had respect for each other, but we weren't really hanging out, if you know what I mean. We're Facebook friends now, which is kind of cool, but it does naturally seemingly homogenize as we go to older and older. But I just was curious if you have the same experience.
No, it just makes me think how I'm a Raider fan and this dude's a Niner fan. Right?
He's a Giant fan. I'm an A's fan.
Right. It's like those opposite things. And it's like, I think it's important to feel comfortable and be with your people. Like this shirt, AfroLit, right? I do the digital literacy for the AfroLit, right? And this is low income Black and brown kids of Oakland and surrounding areas. That's my passion, to help out. If a little white kid comes in and he's broke, right? I'm not saying nah. I'm saying, come on, bro, let's do it, right?
Yeah.
So this, and remember the shirt you had at State? It was Malcolm and Martin together, and it's like in the end, something about unity is the answer. Remember that shirt you had? In the end, it was them shaking hands because everyone was like,
yeah.
Dr. King was like, it's Malcolm, hey.
Yeah.
And then they're shaking hands, right? And it's like everyone's got their different styles, but if we end up at the same place, there's a lot of, I remember in our neighborhood, I was 10 years old. Cop stops me and he's like, yeah, I'm watching you. I'm like, this is by Star Grocery. I'm like, what did I do?
Right.
I didn't do anything, but I'm high profile because it's easy to see me, right? Yes. But I was like, maybe he knew my brother. I'm sure he did. Right. And that's probably why he said it. Or maybe because I was the one of maybe 10 black kids in that neighborhood, maybe less. Right.
Yeah, totally.
And I was like, what? And think about it, that cop was probably in his 20s. He seemed like an old dude to me. But think about cops now. Probably median age is like 30 or something. I don't know. But he was like a patrol dude. So means young in his career. Right. So he's probably like late 20s. And I'm like, what a thing to say to a kid. But it's very upfront of who you are. But then, remember that thing as a kid, you just like when you said about Che Emmanuel, you're just trying to belong.
Yes.
What you wear, your heart. And that's why I say, like Raider fans, you go to a Raider game, you get a contingent from Concord, all these white dudes or whatever, but we're all Raider fans.
That's the key of friendship, is belonging, is a sense of feeling connected and belonging. And you both answered your questionnaire that you felt a huge sense of belonging growing up with your friends. When you came up, that was really important to you in your friend group, and you felt it. And I guess, but Christian, you and I have talked about it not always feeling like that. After high school, there have been times when you haven't always felt like your Berkeley friends kept with you, or, that they would go off and sort of forget about people, or I don't even know. You tell me how you felt about.
Well, that's two sides of that. One is we're not talking about me and Rob. No. We're talking about some of our friends. You'll see they go off in that, and then they kind of shed that like melting pot part because they're trying to fit in at their little Boston school, at their little Colorado school or whatever.
Are these white folks?
White folks, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you'll have our black brethren that'll go to HBCU or something like that, and then it's like, oh, finally. It's like, you've been in the desert. It's like, now I could feel I belong, right?
Yeah.
Imagine being 10% or less of something, right? At any given time, at the most, I'm 10%, right? Of somebody that looks like me, right? But my thing is very unique in that being uncomfortable and abnormal was my norm, right? For me. But I think that there's that Berkeley experience. There's also the people that kind of shed that Berkeley thing and they want to get far away from it. They just want to get into whatever corporate thing and jump that ladder and don't want to deal with the downtrodden or people that need. And that could be across all racial lines or stuff. Oh, I don't want to talk about Israel and Palestine. Yeah, I'm just going to, do my corporate job. And it's like, look at people's part, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that, so I just think that the other part of that I wanted to say was that when I was getting past high school and, because I started doing music, I think I put my first record out a year after I graduated from Berkeley High, 88. And as I did shows, whether it was the Professionals or Alphabet Soup, I was so bombarded by just take. And I was just trying to get peace to myself because I was like, and so I really shut out a lot of people. I was just like, part of it was my drinking eventually, part of it was drugging, but a large part of it was like, if I just cut everybody off and don't get contacted, then I can choose where I want to go without saying, yes, I'll show up. Yes, I'll do this. Right. And so I had a part in that. So I didn't want to be confusing about like,
sure.
My friends left me because I was
right. Yeah. Well, that brings up a big part of what I did want to talk about your friendship is the music scene, right? That the idea that in high school, Chris, you and Sean Liu had a group and you guys had a rap group. And this is a white dude who was an incredible rapper. And I used to see you guys rap all the time. And you guys were, the lyrics that you were spitting back then were really good. And, fast forward, you progressed to one of the most, let's be real, one of the most famous rappers in the Bay Area, CB is, right, Rob? Come on, right?
Okay.
I mean,
definitely.
and we got to experience that. Me more because of your connection with CB. Like I've said this to Chris.
The Rent. we had a group called The Rent because we had to pay.
That's right. I do remember that actually.
Right on the way.
And so that must have been a real pleasure for you, Rob, to watch Chris do this meteoric climb to because literally he was, the Mo Festivals, there was nothing bigger than the Mo's and Alphabet Soup in the Bay Area in our late 20s, early 30s.
It was an amazing music scene, and this dude was definitely in the middle of all of it and had his hands in a whole bunch of different pots, which, being his best friend, made it very accessible for me to be around all this stuff. And the music scene in the late 80s, 90s in the Bay was incredible. And there was some wonderful, wonderful times following this guy around from band to band and scene to scene and seeing some incredible musicians doing stuff that was groundbreaking. They combining hip hop and jazz was not a thing until I had seen it with this whole scene in the Bay. And Chris was a huge part of that. And so it was great because that made it all very accessible for me. And I was happy to be right there with it.
Watching him be up on stage must have been a real treat for you to have.
To this day, it still continues. I went to a festival that I didn't even know existed in Albany. Is it Albany? Where did I see you on the stage? And there was 30,000 people apparently each summer get together in the El Cerrito Hills at the school. And I was like, damn, and there's CB headlining. It continues to be wonderfully enjoyable to see this guy.
I'll tell you what, when we were young, Chandler, remember going to Alex Skolnick's house?
Oh, yeah.
Sit in his back shed, and we didn't even know we just did this it was like this laugh. I don't remember what we wanted to explain. Now, Alex Skolnick is one of the baddest guitarists out there, and he's just doing his thing, and we just want to do something. So he was probably waiting for us to leave. But then fast forward, not too many years later, I'll never forget Berkeley Square. We've seen Laz Rocket and Mike Coons, who was like my soccer hero, right? That dude taught me how to juggle a soccer ball, and I could do it 1,000 times. And I just would practice. And that was probably the first time I took something. I was like, I want to do what he could do. He said, Chris, you got to practice. Every day I go home, do my homework, and go down to the school and just hit my knees, my head, right? And then I got good. Once I got to 1,000, I was like, okay, I did what I wanted to do. I remember being at the Berkeley Square, and we're watching Mike Coons. And he's the lead singer for Laz Rocket. And at one point, he has like what do you call them, bike gloves, like a leather half glove. And he goes down, looks at me, and he goes, ah. And I was like, he's going to shake. He's my friend from the neighborhood, but I'm like, he's going to shake my hand. Bam. And this electricity is just, ooh. And I'm like, yeah. And then catching the drumsticks of like Piero with the Freak Executives when he's playing the timbales. That was a big thing for young kids, man.
Yeah,
and so that type of energy was like for us to look up and go, how do we express? And then hearing like Run DMC come out, and the reason I picked Louis, because there was 3 white dudes, the Beastie Boys, there was 1 black dude, LL Cool J, and there's 3 black dudes or 2 in the DJ with Run DMC. That was like the hottest thing out, 85,
Definitely.
86, right? Yeah, Slick Rick, Dougie Fresh, right? And I was like, I need a white dude, right? So I was thinking of,
oh, really?
But Mountain. No. And I go to Louis' house because we played soccer with Chad. And there's Louis on the couch with like 4 brothers up in the hills, like white ass neighborhood. And I was like, and they're singing the song like anything goes. And they're all like, I think, Chucky DeBose was one of them, and he was there, and I was like, Jack's the one. So I wrote a little rhyme. I met him in the courtyard the next day, and I said, I've been looking for a homie for a long time to rap upon the mic, come up right hand side, equalities are right. So I say this little rhyme, and he's like, ooh, that's fresh. Or he said, that's deaf. And I'm like, yo. I was like, well, what do you think? And he goes, what? I was like, I'm asking you to be my other rapper. He goes, okay. Right. And it was like, and then that was a time we weren't drinking. So we would go get some lattes or, espressos. We still wanted to get jacked. But we would run. We would run and think of beats. And I was the writer. And this is the funny thing, because as amazing and how far past me he blew. He became such a great poet and writer, just way out. I couldn't even touch him. I was a writer. He was a stylist, right? I would go, we will rhyme the rock, or we will rock the rhyme, or we will tick to talk, or we will talk to time. See, that's how he did it. I said talk to time because I was in my chill mode. And he was like, nah, you got to say talk to time. I'm like, oh. So he would take everything and make it stylish. And I was like, we worked very well together. It was a treat.
Def Court, DC for short. You can't.
Nice.
Def Court, sport.
That was Mark Riviere wrote that hook.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Amazing.
Wow.
Well, Rob, you were a musician yourself. Played the trumpet.
But a blues, B flat scale.
I played the trumpet. I did.
We both did.
Yeah, we did.
But what I know about you, Rob, is that you also, not only were you a musician, but you know music. Like, I learned a lot from hanging out with you about, you were a manager for a band. We went to see we probably went out every night together, and we went to see live music for probably a good 10 years. And it maybe a little less, but so many, but you knew talent. You could always find talent. You knew what was good music and what was crap.
Okay, I appreciate that because, and like I said, there was an amazing scene in the '90s in the Bay. I mean, it was incredible. And it's not really like that anymore. It's kind of sad because it's there. I'm waiting for it to come back. They keep saying
Really
Roaring 20s are coming back, but
right.
Roaring 20s.
I'm excited for it.
But you managed a band. I mean, you often were in the music business for a little while yourself. Yes. Tell us about that.
About the music business?
Yeah, tell us about how you.
I think he's still paying off that credit card from the group CD. I remember you maxed that out. You were like,
there you go. You made it.
We ended up making an album with a credit card that I had for a while, and somehow decided it was going to be a great idea to be the executive producer.
HP, what?
Yeah, but that actually destroyed that band because we ended up paying that off for years, and it became lost the joy because fools weren't making no money.
What band is this, Rob? What band was this that you made a record with?
Groove Shop was the band.
Right.
Petrified Fiend.
That's Lou. Louis was the lyricist, and he was writing stuff that was pretty impressive.
Yeah. Now that comes on the heels of another story that I always love to hear you tell. But is a New Year's Eve when we did work at the Claremont Hotel together, and you were the manager at the Claremont Hotel, and you also booked all the bands for the New Year's Eve party that year, and I think you did pretty well.
I was booking all the music actually, and it was 3 nights a week of they had swing Thursdays and jazz Fridays, or not, I don't know jazz, but I was doing the booking there for 4 or 5 years, and it all sort of came to a head that New Year's Eve where we threw an incredible party, that biggest since maybe the Roaring 20s when the hotel used to bang like that a lot back then. Wow. We did this huge, massive party that started out in the afternoon with quartets from Cal, like from the marching band type of thing. They came marching through the whole hotel. I mean, it was a scene, and it was sort of the end of an era, because that night we got into a little bit of trouble for partying a little too hard, but we had thrown the most successful party that hotel had seen in 50 years. So
was he bartending?
I was bartending. Yeah. I bartended at the LeVay Smith concert, and LeVay Smith is, still to this day, that band is amazing. Actually, they were at John's wedding, so we were at that together.
Like once a month up there, LeVay would come up there, and we became real good friends, like hanging out.
Yeah,
that band was badass. And that was just one of the 10 badass bands that night. And I know you guys did. I know Gavin and his whole band played he played in many different bands. I think he got paid like 12 times that night. I remember him being pretty happy about it.
Was that those laminates you guys had? Remember you had
Live from Budokan? No, that was New Year's Eve. That was down at the Omni down in Oakland. But that night at the hotel was pretty spectacular. I think, financially it went over really, really well, and we decided to enjoy the fruits of our labor. And the management was none too pleased that we were drinking their Dom Perignon.
See, that's what I've been waiting for. Tell us the story.
2:30 in the morning.
Cryptic.
Yes. Come
So
on, Rob.
they're counting the beans at the end of the night, and I was feeling no pain at the time. And Dom Perignon for all my friends is a great one that like people like to bring back, because we were drinking their champagne, and it was great.
There was a lot of champagne flowing that night, but the end of the night, I'll tell my part of it. I come into the bar, and it's been a long night. It's 2:00 in the morning, and we're counting the money. Everybody's counting the money. I had cleaned out, I counted mine, turned mine in, but I did go to the terrace bar to see if Rob was there. And Rob was hella happy because he had made hella money, and it was like the most amazing party. And Rob did just yell out, "Sue," from behind the bar, "bring out the Dom Perignon for all my friends." And she was like, "Rob, it's Dom Perignon." He's like, "I don't care. Open that shit up." And she did open it, and we did drink Dom Perignon, but then the top people didn't like that too much, did they, Rob?
That was the end, pretty much the end.
Yeah. That was a bridge too far.
Yeah, that's
yeah.
I respect that. That's better than what's the other stuff that cooks or I've been out of the game. What is the cheap stuff?
What? I don't know. Yeah, cooks probably. That was probably what they were serving. To a couple different things, you guys. So since the music scene and the 80s, you guys, you've started families, you've gone through life with different partners. Chris, you got sober 14 years ago. Let's talk about that time a little bit, because we did witness, Rob, you and I witnessed Chris at probably the top of his addiction. And we witnessed it. It was evident.
Yep.
And I'm curious about the challenges that we go through in life and who helps us with those challenges. And Chris, you had a story about Rob and Tasha coming to give you some feedback about that time.
Yeah. On the other podcast, we talked about how I found my birth family, and Jill helped me do that. And P.O. was a big part of that. And Regina. So let me give my props and my sister Claire. So Jill, Claire, Regina, P.O. You're the reason I found my family. Nice. And my cousin, when I visited Casey, I was visiting my cousin, my birth cousin up in Seattle. He calls me 2 weeks ago and he's like, "Oh yeah, my brother died, overdose." And so when you bring up this, and that's my other cousin, right? And had I still been dabbling this day, I was one of those alcoholics that became an addict that would smoke it, snort it, whatever way to get it inside my body so I could get high. If it looked white, I was doing it, right? If you told me it was what I thought it was, then I was going to do it. And now with fentanyl in the game, I would definitely be dead today, right? And so I don't say that to say some people are lucky, some aren't. That's heartbreaking that my cousin passed, right? Yeah. Because he was dabbling in the shit. That's actually how my biological father died, drug overdose, right? And so the shit is real. It goes real quick from I'm having a good time. And so going back to your point, Rob and Tasha show up at my place on Addison one day, and you were very straight up. You're like, I'm not trying to say, do as I don't do, right? But Chris, obviously, you're not having fun anymore, right? And then Tasha's there with her, this is my place, Sister Tasha, with her little Alameda County. Unless you hit your bottom and you're ready, you ain't going to change.
You're in trouble when Tasha shows up for your intervention.
And this dude.
Oh, that's right. I shouldn't talk shit.
But
yes.
The blessing of that was these people love me. I'm fighting. I'm like, no, you're not going to take away my high. Fuck that. I want to get drunk when I want to get drunk, and I want to get high. Me, like a sing-a-song check, right? So I'm like, no, but now I can look back to that. And that day that they came, you guys asked me, and I was like, you know what? I remember high school. So that was early 2000s. So it had been only 15 years removed from high school. And I was like, I remember I really enjoyed myself in high school because I was this healthy runner, dude, there is a way forward that you could be satisfied in life. So I was lucky to have a perspective of lived through a perspective of being dry and so clean and sober. Right. But then I was also be able to look at it and say, these people love me and they're here because they love me. They're here despite, and I'm not saying Rob always held it down. He was good. Tasha, not so much. Right. But Tasha had gone through a crazy thing. She'd probably been sober for a couple of years when she did that. Right. And we've lost her now. We don't know where she's at. She's in the throes of her thing. But that's each person, you know, she'll come back. But I was that did two things for me. I was like, shit, they all know. They're calling you out. And B, it makes you think, this ain't a party. Don't call it party. What are you celebrating? Right. This is an addiction. This is depression. This is mental health issues. I wasn't able to see that. I was just like, what's next? Well, get a 40. Oh, get some vodka. Well, I don't want to fall asleep. Let me get some yayo. Right. Now I'm not asleep. Oh, I'm gacked out. Let me get some more liquor. It's just never-ending cycle.
Well, I do think that, and we may have talked about this before, but, and maybe Rob, you want to chime in, but that's a friend, right? That's a friend. That's a friend that the trust is high when you've known somebody from the crib and then they show up to you and give you some feedback that's not actually the kind of feedback you actually want to hear, right? A lot of friends didn't show up. A lot of people didn't give you that feedback. Maybe a lot of did. I don't know. But Rob certainly took a risk there.
It was a time when we were really worried and concerned with Chris and his behavior at the time in his life. And we were frightened that the worst was definitely going to happen if he continued. And so we wanted to let him know. And I remember being approached by Tasha at the time, who was sober at the time and going through her own home thing, but her asking me to help her do this thing, of course I was going to do that. This is somebody that I cherish. And so, yeah, if we're going to go there and tell him that we don't think that you're doing what you should be doing, then we're going to do that. And I don't know that wasn't the beginning of sobriety by any stretch.
I'm guessing that was around, because I was Addison Street. So I'm guessing around 2003 or 4. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
So 5 years later.
Yeah.
2009.
So 5 more years, but being there and being asked to support that movement, I was, of course, I'm all in, because I don't want what you're suggesting or what we're seeing as a possible outcome.
You say, Chris, that it did make a difference to you, whether you were ready at that time or not. It made a difference to know that Rob and Tasha came to you, like that you could refer back to that. It was something that you remembered.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, in the throes of addiction, what are you thinking about? Like, me. I want to get my satisfaction. Oh, poor, pity me. Nobody loves me. My mom gave me away. My dad, I found out, didn't even know I existed, right? Till the day he died, didn't even know that he had me. So, how come nobody loves me? Oh, this didn't work out for me, right? Pair that with the addiction itself. I got to get more. I don't even know why I got to get more. Like the rat in the pellet, right? And then so when someone's shaking you by entering your home and say, hey, dude, we're concerned about you. What's up? There's some help out there, but we're going to start with this, saying we love you. We know you're worth it. And you're like, so the next time I'm going me, or pity, I'm like, I am worth it. I am loved. They came in my door to tell me that. That meant the world to me. It really did. Yeah.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, man. I get too emotional. I just got it. Yeah.
No, that's deep. That's deep, because we need these people in our lives to give us honest fucking feedback, right? Where if we're fucking up, we need people to tell us we're fucking up. And only people who have the kind of connection like you guys have the kind of status that would allow for that, right?
Even
you might have.
I was sorry to interrupt, but even if I was combative, you could talk shit to, right? What did he just say, right? Tell you your shit stink, right? You can talk shit to and still come back. I got to respect that, because actually it's true. I was fucked off.
Yeah.
Like, tell me I'm fucked up. Don't be, oh, it's all good, right?
But that's a friend, right? A friend gives you honest feedback. A friend's not one who's like, oh, yeah, you're cool up on stage and we love you that way. And, we'll get high with you and then, forget about you. A friend is somebody who actually keeps track of you, who actually does notice, damn, you're not making sense like I know you can make sense, or your lyrics are not as good as I know they could.
You read the lyrics. Tell you when you're headed down the wrong road, hit you with the combo, listen how the song go, right?
Love
so
that.
That's all about that.
Yeah, man. I've been listening to CB's music. It's the just on repeat for the last couple months, really, since I last talked to him. Man, I admire you so much for your talent, dude. It really is amazing how talented, but how much work you've done over the years. I mean, this is 40 years of work, right?
I'm on my way to the studio in 5 minutes. That's what I said.
I'm gonna let you guys go, but
it's the other part, right? It's like, this is how I figure out what's going on in here and out there. As hippie as that shit sound, I'm channeling this light, and who I've been using for a long time, the last 5 years, has been Zachariah. We lost Zachariah Mose passed.
Yeah.
Right. That was my dog. And he taught me a lot about music. So every time I take a walk or drive, I'm channeling this light through. I go, hey, Zachariah, can I walk with you? The first I say, walk with me. I was like, nah, I ain't all that. So can I walk with you? And then I'll hold hands with Zachariah. I'll hold hands with my mom, right? My dad, who I also lost. So I carry the ashes on my thing. And then my biological father. And then my cousin Missy. And so all these people that we lost along the way, I'm like, can I walk with you? And I'm like, if I'm doing anything, I'm messing it up. So I'm just trying to get that clear, that true channel to that light and then put it out. Because, man, that's therapy. That's one of the therapies I do.
Yeah. Well, I've heard that from other artists and other musicians, that they are sort of a conduit, that they just allow themselves to open themselves up and be inspired, and then it just moves through them.
Put the blame on someone else when we write whack shit. That was a horrible song. I trusted you. On a cloud.
Well, the last question, since you do guys, I know I want to let you go, but there was a question about who you might admire from your hometown. And Rob, you were very specific. You said Chris Berger.
Oh, good. I do admire this guy very much.
I didn't say him.
You had lots of people to admire, I think you might have said not anybody specifically, but yeah. Rob, it sticks out that Rob said, Chris Berger, and you said for many reasons. I'm happy to read it to you if you like, but tell me why you admire CB.
For a number of reasons, including 14 years ago when he decided to turn his shit proper, and he's still here with us today because he's done that. And it's very admirable, and I'm happy for me that he has chosen to do that, because I love this guy and I don't want him going anywhere.
Yeah. And
yeah, man, it's a true hometown friendship that I admire a lot of aspects of this guy's life. We've been through it, and he has helped show me a really wonderful friendship.
Wow.
And the boy's been available.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I appreciate it.
Yeah. I think it's.
Can I put it?
Yeah, of course.
So I admire Rob's wife. No, and I say that because I always talk about what an amazing friend Rob is, an amazing individual Anna is, because imagine, doesn't matter what time of day, what's happening, how I'm dressed, what workout I did, I show up at the door, Anna's got the same smile. And I'm like, that is the perfect match for my best friend. Yeah. That really is. Not because you're letting me through the door, but that she knows. Like, I look at, when's the last time you saw that? Chris and Rob. It always was Chris and Rob. Chris and Rob. I'm looking at the title. But that's just like, I think she trips when she hears me speak, because when I hear Rob speak, I hear myself. I'm like, I hear his voice, I'm like, damn, that sounds. It's like that first time you hear your voice on a tape recorder, you get all weird. You're like, remember that in the 70s? You're like, let's do it again. But it's like, I hear Rob and I think of me. We're brothers, right?
It's a mirror. It's a mirror to yourself in so many ways.
But my respect for Rob is like fearless, a builder. I always wanted to be a builder. And Rob will just be like, oh, I'm going to build that house. How the hell do you do that? How do you build a house? Well, I guess you start with plans. If you put me and Rob in the field and said, build a house, I'd have a tent. It'd be a dope tent, maybe a hole in the ground. This shit would be like a 3-story house with a man cave and a little, you know, but the building aspect, the fearless aspect, the loyalty. Rob is loyal to a fault. So let me just stop at those 3. I think
those are great. And I admire both of you, not for what you do, but literally you guys are so talented in both of your professions, but I don't necessarily admire you for that. I really admire your character. I've said this, that I've, walked with Chris, and Chris gives, anybody the time of day, always talks to them. Doesn't matter who they are, homeless, fucked up, whatever. If Chris will talk to anybody. And Rob, you are one of the most loyalist people I know. You keep your friends close and you have your friends back. I appreciate you guys, your friendship. It's beautiful to witness. It's great to have you guys both talk about it a little bit, reflect on it. How does it feel to reflect on your 50-year friendship?
Let's do it again.
I got to say, I heard a lot of nice things tonight, so I appreciate both you guys.
Thanks for listening to Hometown Friends and for taking a peek into the lives and the friendship of Chris Berger and Rob Aids. You can see that these men developed a loyalty bond that is unmatched in their other relationships. Their long-term friendship has surely contributed to their overall sense of themselves and to their connection to the larger community. Rob and Chris navigated their youth together and have consistently returned to the comforts of their brotherhood. These guys have been available to each other throughout their lives, not only for fun and excitement, but when needed, they were real with each other, even when it was uncomfortable, because that's what real friends do. The act of being available is an essential ingredient in friendship, and it's a distinctive quality of long-lasting relationships. A friend who is emotionally and physically available to you is a significant and profound experience. Having a friend to ask for help or talk to when we have a breakup or share a life success with allows us to feel a sense of connection and belonging to the outside world. When we are both the type of friend that offers both physical and emotional support to others, we're not only strengthening our bond between ourselves, but we're contributing to our own overall sense of well-being. If we consistently fail to offer physical and emotional support to our friends, then we miss opportunities to experience the kind of deep connection that comes from contributing to the lives of others. If we're not vulnerable with our friends, then we miss opportunities to allow others to help us and to feel the strength and gratitude that comes from asking for help and receiving it from our friends. I hope that this podcast brings to light the stories about how being available to our friends contributes to a more meaningful and connected community. If you have a hometown friend story to share, or you want to share thoughts about this topic, follow me on Instagram at Hometown Friends Pod. And please take a few extra seconds to subscribe to my YouTube channel, because this is the best way that you can show your support to me and to help me keep producing these shows. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of Hometown Friends.
We fall down, but we